At ZocDoc, we know being a healthy adult is like living in a video game. Every day has side quests, taxes, laundry, birthdays, and just when you're leveling up, you have to book a doctor. The insurance portal crashes, they put you on hold, your doctor doesn't take your plan, game over. We see you, so we made booking a doctor easy. Download ZocDoc, search by specialty, insurance, and availability. Book instantly, no cheat codes required. Find a doctor you love with ZocDoc.
Hey, Fidelity. What's it cost to invest with the Fidelity app?
Start with as little as $1 with no account fees or trade commissions on U.S. stocks and ETFs.
That's music to my ears.
I can only talk.
Investing involves risk, including risk of loss. Zero account fees apply to retail brokerage accounts only. $0 commission does not apply to customers designated by Fidelity as a professional equity trader. A limited number of ETFs are subject to a service fee of $100. See details at fidelity.com/commissions. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE SIPC.
Welcome back to I Want That Too, the podcast where Disney merch meets Disney history. I'm entertainment writer Jim Hill, and as always, I'm joined by the lovely Lauren Hersey, who is here. We're recording this on the first day of July, so just a couple days out from America's 250th birthday, right?
Yes, and I mean, everywhere you look, there is something America 250, 4th of July. I was actually shopping the other day with Lainey and noticed that Old Navy has a new collab going with Disney for the 4th of July 250. They had some really cute stuff for clothing, but they had mini denim shorts. I got Miles, like a 4th of July 250 Mickey shirt. I actually got 2 shirts that I'm going to wear to the parks here in a couple weeks when we're back down there. But really, really cute 4th of July line. What are you doing to celebrate Big 250?
Well, again, this is New Boston, New Hampshire. We're a weird little small town, and I'm pretty sure on this podcast, I previously talked about the ghost train. Do you remember we talked about this at all? Or?
No, ghost train? And 4th of July? Nope, we're not ringing a bell.
The ghost train. Oh, okay. All right. New Boston, New Hampshire used to be a dairy town. I mean, we had like 30 or 40 dairy farms here in this corner of the Granite State, which meant that every morning a train would pull into town and collect all of the milk and then take it to the processing plant. Again, we went from being a farming town and in the Depression, a lot of the farms closed and became more a residential town, and eventually the train stopped coming. But somebody harvested off of the train that used to come town the steam whistle. Okay. And so I want to say for 25, 30 years now, on the night of July 3rd, soon to be July 4th, the ghost train rolls through New Boston. And what this basically means, and in fact, I'm not allowed to say who has the whistle now, but it's actually a family that lives on the same road as Nancy and myself. And this is after midnight, where suddenly you'll be in your house and you'll hear it, the ghost train rolling through the streets of New Boston, New Hampshire. And what it is that they get a tank of compressed air and a trailer, and they put it on the back of a pickup truck, and they roll through the town at night. Woo, woo, and it is the weirdest little tradition. And in fact, just this past year, because I've always wanted to see it in action, I drove down to the bottom of our driveway and sat there and waited. And sure enough, at 1:30 at night, the ghost train came rolling by. And because I'm so technically inept, Lauren, when I went to record it on my phone, I totally missed it. And in fact, you can hear on the little film clip, me swearing because I missed it.
Been there.
But this year, I'm going to do it. I'm going to, in fact, I may have something to share with I Want That Too listeners later on this month. But I'll be sitting at the end of the driveway waiting for the ghost train to roll by because, again, it's a new Boston tradition, and it's just not a weird little small town unless you have some sort of weird tradition.
I wonder what people new to the area think. Are they like, what is going on?
Well, it's so funny you say that because New Boston, I've lived here with Nancy, it'll be 30 years, in 2027. And, we've become much more of a bedroom community for Manchester over the hill. And so, yes, there were a lot of new families like, what the hell is that?
Welcome to town.
There we go. It's a ghost train. I'm so sorry. Let me explain about a dairy train that, came here 80 years ago.
Well, that is certainly an interesting tradition. And I can't wait to hear, hopefully, the sounds of the ghost train here on this podcast. But anyways, we got a lot to cover. So coming up in today's episode, we're talking about why Disney is already thinking about 2027 merch, the viral souvenir I spent my entire trip at Disney looking for, and why Hollywood Studios suddenly feels like a popcorn mecca. Then in today's feature, Jim is going to be talking about the story of Disney's forgotten plan to build an entirely new kind of Disney destination in Texas. But before that, we do have a favor to ask. So if you've been enjoying the show, leave us a review. Tell us your favorite Disney souvenir. We want to hear from you, whether it's a popcorn bucket pin, whatever. Nothing's off the table. But we'd love to hear the story behind it. We'll be sharing some of your comments on a future episode.
But of course, you wouldn't be listening to the show today if we didn't have a sponsor. And the sponsor of this program is, of course, UnlockMagic.com, your go-to source for great deals on Disney and Universal tickets. And if a trip down to Florida to visit the parks is on your radar for the summer of 2026, head on over to UnlockMagic.com and let their team help you make your next vacation just a little bit more magical. So, all right. Again, you and Eric were down in Florida recently and got to see a lot of new Disney merch in person, correct?
Yeah. So I know that we're talking, we went about 3 weeks ago and our next trip is here in 2 or 3 weeks. But I didn't get to cover everything that I saw and I had questions about. And so I had just a couple more little things that, I observed while I was down there. And one of the things that I observed was that the 26 dated merch was already on sale, which I thought was odd because, it was the beginning of June. So how did that, or, second week of June. But since then, I just saw a couple days ago that the first piece of 2027 merch has hit Disney World. Is that mind-blowing a little bit to you, or is it just me?
Well, that kind of tells you a little bit about what's been going on at the Walt Disney World Resort in 2026. And remember, we've seen a serious uptick in gas price, which has had an impact of the number of people who've driven down to Florida to experience the parks down there. We've seen a similar impact on plane fares. So there's a reason the 2026 merch is on sale right now. There's a fear at Disney that given the fewer guests that are coming onto property, they've over-purchased, and it's if we don't start to move this stuff now, we're really going to be loaded with it come, October, November, December. So, by the way, it's not actually all that unusual that 2027 stuff does start showing up in the summer of, the previous year, because because interesting phenomena. What some families like to do is, when they announce the big family trip for the coming year at, say, Christmas or a birthday celebration, they, like to be able to hand out a shirt or a hat or something with the date of when the family's headed down there. So Disney will do this. I mean, it's not a whole, slew of material, but it gives folks who, want to surprise the family with a Disney World trip an option to have something in the box under the tree, so to speak.
Yeah, but it's not lost on me that the first piece of merch is actually a 2027 calendar. Do you think that there's anything to be like reading between the lines here? Like, please come back in 2027. Just write those dates on your 2027 calendar right now. Let's lock it in. For intent to return is their number one benchmark.
Yeah, the downside of it is that if you know your Disney history, a lot of folks will wait for the big new stuff to open up. And remember, we're still a year or more out from Piston Peak, even phase 1 of that opening. And dear Lord, what is it? Villains Land is now 2030, 2031. Even the Tropical Americas Encanto thing is a way out yet. So, Disney can sell a lot of calendars. I don't know how many people will actually be deciding to go in 2027. But we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, but when a normal person is shopping at the Emporium and they see this calendar, they see a calendar. But Disney fans, I think that we can, think that this is going to be the new design for what we see on the dated merch for the coming year. And it's a little bit different than what we've seen in previous years. They've all been pretty similar. This one looks like it has maybe some trees for Animal Kingdom in the 2. We've got Cinderella's Castle in the O, Hollywood Studios Tower of Terror in the 2, and then it looks like we got Epcot in the 7. So I really do like this design, and just because we are creatures of habit and we do visit the park typically in August, that is when we see like the shirts and the hats and that kind of stuff coming out. So we're just a couple months premature to what we typically see, but we'll keep you posted on if we continue to see more 2027 merch. But next up, I had to mention what I was personally searching for my entire trip when we were down there. So if you have been on social media, at least if you're a Disney fan, Reels, TikTok, you may have seen all of the viral videos about these tiny little Minnie and Mickey headband keychains that Disney started selling. They went just berserk. Everybody is wanting them. And they had multiple versions that showed up in the spring. And they had classic Minnie, they had rose gold, Haunted Mansion, Mickey autograph, and then these like fluffy white ears. So I was thrilled to pieces when I saw the rack for them in the Emporium. But they had the Haunted Mansion ones and they had the white fluffy ones, and that was all that was left. So I got some for Lainey and Go-Go. But the like mega viral one is just the plain black Mickey ears. And what people are doing is they're taking them over to Disney Springs and they're getting them customized with their name or maybe some little like designs on them. So I think that was why these blew up at the United States. But I was like, how did we get here? Like, did they just, come out with these in the spring and somebody, saw them and were like, oh, these are really cute, and then they became a viral trend? No, they're kind of like the build your own headband ears we talked about, a year ago or 2 years ago before they got really big. These miniature ears have been super popular at Tokyo Disney Resort for years. And I think Disney, with their new consolidated departments, they're like, hey, this is doing really well over here. Let's test it in the States. And we love it too. So keep them coming.
Okay, I was not aware of this. For me, it just seems counterintuitive that it was the plain black classic miniature Mickey Mouse ears that blew up. But again, if they're hauling them over to Disney Springs to get customized, it's like, okay, it's a little more effort than I'd put into it. But anyway, what other merch did you stumble across on your most recent trip down to Florida?
Yeah, so I'm a weirdo, and I'm always looking and counting and, analyzing things in my head when I'm in the park. And the things that I was counting this time was how many Bluey shirts did I see in Animal Kingdom, adults and children. I think I got to 19 in a very short time that we were there. But the other thing that I was counting was the Lightning McQueen popcorn buckets, because everybody online was really excited about this popcorn bucket. And, we've talked about it on, prior episodes, but what makes this one special is that the wheels move and it does light up and makes sense, ahead of Piston Peak opening. And there were a lot of people that had these popcorn buckets, but I think they were initially launched in Hollywood Studios. And then, when I got back, I saw that they were announcing the Bullseye popcorn bucket, which was $26. Everybody was really excited about that. And I did see the Sam Eagle bucket. And look at these Star Wars ones. This was Jabba's sail barge bucket, that's a deep cut. And then this droid. So as I'm looking around and what people are carrying, they are carrying more of these, I'd say, signature limited time buckets than regular plain old popcorn buckets. So the question that I've been stewing on and waiting till we could talk about it on the podcast is, do you think that Disney is being intentional with only selling certain buckets at certain parks so that you have to go there to get this bucket versus saying, I want Lightning McQueen, but I only have one day at Magic Kingdom? Well, if you want that bucket, you have to go there or buy it on eBay.
Yeah, realistically, Disney does in fact have a history of, it's you want that bucket, you have to go to that park. Think about the number of times we've had Figment or Journey into Imagination related popcorn buckets. And it's you need to come over to Epcot for Flower and Garden or Food and Wine. Disney then has somebody sitting there with an iPad at the exit, counting the number of people at the end of the day who are walking out of that park carrying, that popcorn bucket that they can only purchase in this theme park. And of course, the other parks down in Florida wanted in on this sort of thing. What kind of intrigues me, though, is about, for example, your Sam the Eagle thing. That was on sale where? At the Magic Kingdom? No,
I think it was on sale at Hollywood Studios. But the photo that I shared with you, this one has it at Magic Kingdom. But I think this one was just at Hollywood Studios.
Okay, well, that makes sense because, again, you've just had Rock and Roller Coaster open starring the Muppets over at the studio. But what's fascinating is when that first debuted, that popcorn bucket, I want to say it was at the American Adventure Pavilion. They have that smokehouse restaurant that got Muppet-themed about 4 and 5 years. And I want to say maybe that was a Sam the Eagle popcorn or sipper.
Oh, that was a year ago. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So, that's, again, it's kind of intriguing what's being sold where and, what IP is being used to sort of push people into parks.
Right. It's just pushing people around. And that's why I thought, that's why there's so many. Think about 3-5 years ago, there may have only been one like specialty popcorn bucket. But what did I just show you here? Like that's like 6?
Yeah. But at the same time, I mean, it's just when you look at the amount of money that, well, California especially, has made off of these hyper detailed, amazingly on model popcorn buckets. I mean, that's the thing of for example, that Bullseye bucket. Oh my God. I mean, that looks like the characters walk straight out of the film,
Right.
But at the same time, what I always find hilarious about these things is the people who buy these and then they go to fill it with popcorn. Oh God, no. Keep your filthy popcorn away from my beautiful collectible. So
yes, it's like the secondary, is like the snacks, just the bonus. But anyways, keeping with Hollywood Studios, I did notice that Hollywood Studios has its own line of merch, and that's not new. I think I may have had some photos from previous trips where they had their own line. But I also saw, which not in the park, but I also saw these really cool Skyliner ears. And they were the coolest thing I saw as far as something that I did not see in a shop. I saw it on somebody's head. And after doing some research, I guess you could just get them at Art of Animation. But anyways, so it looks like more and more that places, not just attractions and characters, they're getting their own line of merch. And what I did not realize or could connect the dots to is next to the Hollywood Studios merch display, there was a shirt for Baseline. And I ask you about this, Jim. Baseline Tap House. Who is buying a shirt for Baseline Tap House? What even is that?
Oh, well, believe it or not, that venue, which has been in operation under various names and various forms since, 1991, has a pretty in-depth history, which we'll get to in a second. But before we do that, there's this.
Visible puts the ultimate wireless hack in the palm of your hand. With unlimited 5G wireless data and hotspot designed to keep you connected, powered by Verizon's 5G network. And no contract holding you back. Plans start at $25 a month, or get the premium Visible Plus Pro plan and save $10 on your first month when you use promo code HACK. Make the switch at Visible.com. Terms apply. See Visible.com for details.
Experience a membership that backs what you're building with American Express Business Platinum. Enjoy complimentary access to the American Express Global Lounge Collection and apply to find out your welcome offer, which could be as high as 300,000 membership rewards points. American Express Business Platinum. There's nothing like it. Terms apply. Welcome offers vary, and you may not be eligible for an offer. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-platinum.
And we're back. And Lauren was just talking about interesting pieces of merchandise at Disney's Hollywood Studios, not based on characters, not based on attractions, but, in this case, it was a T-shirt for the Baseline Tap House.
Yes. That's a real deep cut. You have to be a real big fan to know about that, right?
Well, yeah. In fact, there's a surprising amount of Disney company history associated with this outlet, this particular building at that theme park. Which, by the way, the thing we're talking about is today the Baseline Tap House. It's an indoor restaurant that also has an outdoor patio on Grand Avenue. Sells California craft beers and wines and tapas there. But when this was first added to the park, it was part of the first big expansion of Disney MGM back in April of 1991. But back then, Lauren, it was the costume shop In fact, it was right next door to the Sci-Fi Dine-In Theater. And it was part of the expansion that brought us for what was then known as Disney MGM Studios theme park. We got the ABC Commissary, and we also got Commissary Lane, which then connected the Chinese Theater with the old Streets of America section, the back lot that you used to be able to walk on this part of the park. Remember the Osborne lights used to be staged there?
Oh,
okay.
yes.
So, but here's the thing. Ellen DeGeneres had a show on ABC. It debuted back in March of 1994, and on that TV program, Ellen's character worked at a bookstore/coffee shop, and the name of that shop was By the Book. That show starts on ABC March of 1994. In July of 1995, Lauren, Disney announces that it's going to be buying Cap City's ABC for $19 billion. They complete that transaction in February of 1996. And Michael Eisner at this point is like, and we need to put ABC stuff in the park, so let's get on that. So what they do at Hollywood Studios is they take the costume shop, again, that thing that debuted at Disney MGM in April of 91, and they change it into an in-park replica of By the Book from the Ellen sitcom. Okay. So costume shop closes April of 96. It reopens as By the Book October 2nd of that same year, 1996. So now it sells books and coffee. And Lauren, things are fine till April of 97, which is when, on the 22nd episode of the 4th season of The Ellen Show, in an episode entitled The Puppy Episode, Ellen's character comes out as gay, and this is the first time that's ever happened on a network television program. And it was thought to be very courageous at the time, but sadly, this decision begins to have an impact on sales at Ellen's By the Book store at Disney MGM. There are certain folks who go to Walt Disney World on their vacation who are suddenly reluctant to take their kids into what's since become known as the gay book and coffee shop.
Oh.
Yeah. Now, Ellen actually ends its run on ABC in July of 1998 after 109 episodes, 5 seasons. Ellen's By the Book store closes at Disney MGM in the fall of that same year, 1998. It gets rethemed. It reopens in January of 1999 with a new name, Writer's Stop. Still sells books and coffee. And Lauren, Writer's Stop stays in business through April of 2016. And what's about to change is in August of the previous year, 2015, in fact, at the D23 Expo, this is when we learned that a Star Wars-themed land, and this is a 14-acre addition that's about to be built at this theme park as well as out in Anaheim. Well, it's coming to Disney's Hollywood Studios as well as Disneyland Park. And this is when Writer's Stop gets turned into the baseline tap house. And so you get that elaborate brick facing, you get the outdoor patio built. And what you'll love about this story, Lauren, is that they deliberately built a place that people can sit and drink wine and eat tapas. Because just, 100 yards away from this is where Rise of the Resistance was going to be built. And the feeling was, okay, it's quite likely this is going to be the most popular ride in Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, which means it's going to have the longest line, which means that friends and family who don't want to ride that attraction for some reason, need some place to sit and wait and perhaps drink, and so this was the notion that if we keep it a bookstore, people, first of all, we're going to run out of places for people to sit down, because they're going to go in there, grab a book and wait for the family member to finish and then continue on with their trip to the park. So it's like, let's turn this into something that A, has more seating, so we'll do the outdoor patio, and B, they can sit there with an overpriced adult beverage and nosh on an overpriced plate of appetizers. And that's the way it's been. In fact, what's kind of interesting is Baseline Tap House opened August 29th, 2017, and 2 years to the day, the Florida version of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge opens on August 29th, 2019, but Rise of the Resistance doesn't manage to open until December 5th of that same year. And, given that it's the ride that's most prone to break down, I want to say Len, with his touring plans hat on, it's typically down for at least an hour a day. So there's a lot of folks who walk up to the attraction and go, "Oh, it's not open. I need a drink," and immediately turn and go to the Baseline Tap House. So it turned out to be a really smart choice on Disney's part to turn the bookstore, or which used to be the costume store, into a bar.
All right. Well, that makes a whole lot of sense. I just could not wrap my mind around why somebody would want to buy a Baseline shirt. But we just talked about how, places are becoming just as big of a part of your experience as characters and rides and that kind of thing. And that's something that Disney has known for a long time. I mean, looking back, you're going to tell us the story about how Disney almost opened a place outside of Orlando that probably would have sold a lot of merch, right?
Well, yeah. In fact, the reason we're sharing this story today is that, Lauren and I are recording this episode on June 29th, a Monday, and on Wednesday of this week, July 1st, is when Universal Kids Resort opens up in Frisco, Texas. And this 20-acre theme park with its 300-room resort, again, that opens officially on the 1st. And this project, by the way, got officially announced back in January of 2023. And according to the folks at Universal Destinations Experience, it was supposed to be their first regional theme park aimed at families with young kids, and specifically kids 3 to 8. And again, built in Frisco, Texas, Lauren, which is, by the way, 35 miles outside of Dallas. And just so we're clear here, that's not the biggest city in Texas. Houston and San Antonio, both are bigger, with 2.4 million and 1.5 million residents, respectively, whereas Dallas is the third biggest city in the state with 1.3 million residents. And again, I bring up Universal Kids Resort's proximity to Dallas because back in 1989, the Walt Disney Company seriously considered building, not exactly a theme park, but rather a regional entertainment center. And I guess the best way to describe this is what would have happened if Walt Disney World's old Pleasure Island nighttime entertainment complex in the original Disney MGM Studio theme park had a baby. And Lauren, believe it or not, this baby was going to be called Disney Texposition. And the reason we know about this project today is, before he died, back in August of 2010, Harrison Buzz Price and a very important guy in Disney history. He's the one who told Walt Disney where the best place was to build the original Disneyland. Again, Orange Groves and Anaheim. Also the same guy who told Walt best place to build Project Florida, which was in the swamps outside of Orlando. Anyway, before Buzz passed away at the age of 89, he donated all of his personal papers to the University of Central Florida. And they're currently held, Lauren, in that school's special collections and university archive. And but what's really great about this, and this is rare that we're able to do this on this podcast, because the good folks at the University of Central Florida over the past 16 years now have actually begun to digitize a lot of Mr. Price's personal papers. You can go today online and actually access the Buzz Price collection. In fact, just going to suggest, folks, while I'm chatting here, hop on your laptop, Google Disney Texposition, and it's spelled the way you might think it would be spelled, Texposition, and the actual feasibility study that Buzz wrote for this project will come up. Let's talk now, Lauren. Why would Disney be looking to build a regional entertainment center in the Lone Star State? And it's all about, in the late 80s, early 90s, Disney is looking to diversify its portfolio. And again, story starts in 89. At this point, Disney only has one destination resort. That's the one in Florida, Walt Disney World. Disneyland, at this point in its history, not really a resort. It's a theme park with a hotel attached. And in fact, Disney had only just managed to get its hands on the Disneyland Hotel back in January of 88. They'd managed to finally wrestle it away from the Rather Corporation at that point, and they're still in the process of taking that 1,174-room hotel and turning it into a Disney World-style hotel. Anyway, Lauren, we were talking a moment ago about Pleasure Island, Disney's nighttime entertainment complex. And again, obviously, a lot of people miss it since it closed back in 2014 or thereabouts. But what a lot of people don't remember is that when that place first opened in the late spring, early summer of 1989, Pleasure Island genuinely struggled for a while to attract a crowd. And then Disney President Frank Wells got so concerned about, why aren't people going to this thing that we spent all of this money on? And that's the other thing people don't like to talk about with Pleasure Island. Lauren, that project went 300% over budget. So it was like, that Disney was kind of desperate to get that money back. So Frank Wells looks for help, and he turns to the Rouse Company, who, by the way, these are the folks who took Boston's then dilapidated Quincy Market and turned it into, the now thriving and vibrant Faneuil Hall Marketplace that opened in 1976. And then just 4 years after that, they did something similar in Baltimore with that city's Harbor Place project. So the people from the Rouse Company, they come to Florida, they walk around Pleasure Island, and they're the ones who go to Disney. It's like, we know how to fix this. And what you're going to do is you're going to announce to the world that every night is New Year's Eve at Pleasure Island, because that will then give people an excuse after they finish their day at Epcot or MGM or the Magic Kingdom we want to go over to that place. They're going to have a New Year's Eve party, and fireworks at midnight. And that's what does it. The promise of, having a street party that they can attend after their day is done at the theme parks is what turns things around for Pleasure Island. And not to mention also the fireworks display out over Lake Buena Vista. And once things get corrected at Pleasure Island, the people at the Rouse Company then turn to Disney management and say, okay, we did you a solid. We'd now like to talk with you folks about potentially collaborating on something, because we got an idea, something we want to do in Texas. And Frank Wells and Michael Eisner, are like, okay, we're listening. But what's interesting is like this time around is, we don't want to do what we did at Faneuil Hall, do what we did in Baltimore. We don't want to take a dilapidated area in an older American city. We want to do something brand new from the ground up in Dallas, which, by the way, sits, pretty much right in the middle between Disneyland Park in Anaheim and Walt Disney World down in Florida. Now, as to what sort of mix of elements Disney Texposition would have, we'll get to that in a moment, Lauren. But before we do that, there's this.
Every act of change begins with a neighbor, with someone saying,
"We take care of each other here."
In food banks and food pantries, neighbors pack fresh food and dignity into every box, moving food from farms to families through Feeding America's nationwide network. So when that box reaches a home, it carries more than food. It carries a promise that together we can end hunger. Feeding America, led by neighbors. Give now to end hunger at feedingamerica.org.
Even if you're using topical prescription creams for your child's eczema, you still might be hearing this. That relentless itching that makes them want to scratch and scratch and scratch and scratch. When their moderate to severe eczema isn't well controlled, it's time to ask about Dupixent, dupilumab, which isn't a cream, steroid, or immunosuppressant. Dupixent helps kids as young as 6 months stay ahead of their eczema with clearer skin and noticeably less itch. Severe allergic reactions, including skin reactions, can occur. Get help right away for face, mouth, tongue, or throat swelling, wheezing, or trouble breathing. Tell your doctor right away of new or worsening eye problems like eye pain or vision changes, skin symptoms, joint aches and pain, or a parasitic infection. Don't change or stop other treatments without talking to your doctor. Dupixent helps your child feel the heal. Ask your child's eczema specialist. Visit Dupixent.com or call 1-844-DUPIXENT.
And we're back. Okay, Lauren and I were just talking about how some 35 years before the Universal Kids Resort opened up in Frisco, Texas this week, the Walt Disney Company was having some in-depth conversations with the Rouse organization about building what at that time, well, again, if you read the feasibility study that's available online, thanks to the University of Central Florida, this project is called a lot of things. One of the key ones is a festival marketplace, a regional entertainment center that was supposed to be called Disney Texposition. And again, because this is what Disney does, when the Rouse people came to them and pitched this idea, Disney immediately pivoted and said, "Where's Buzz Price? Can we get him to do a feasibility study, see if this project, this thing that the Rouse people want us to get involved with, does it make financial sense? Can it make money in the vicinity of Dallas, Texas?" And another weird little bend on the story, Lauren, is that, again, not typically talked about these days, years after Pleasure Island closed down in Florida, but back in the late 80s, early 90s, the Disney company was still thinking of Pleasure Island as a franchise, a nighttime entertainment complex that they could build in other cities around the U.S. away from a Disney theme park. For example, Disney Development Company actually sent teams of people to the field. One team went to Massachusetts and they explored sites along Boston Harbor. In fact, to be specific, in the South Boston waterfront, which today is the now bustling Boston Seaport area. And Disney Development also sent a team of people to Philadelphia to check out an area that was adjacent to the then still under construction Penn's Landing. And so, what was interesting is the Rouse Company, having just walked through Pleasure Island, it's like, oh, yeah, we want to do stuff like this, especially, by the way, the Adventurers Club. We want to do stuff like this as part of this thing we want to do in Texas. And again, another interesting little bend on the story, Lauren. When the Imagineers were planning on building Westcott Center, and that was the first theme park that they wanted to build across the plaza from the classic Disneyland in Anaheim. This was going to be the project that was basically a Westcott version or a West Coast version of Epcot Center. The Adventures Club was part of this as well. Full-scale version of that nightclub was supposed to be part of Disneyland's nighttime entertainment district. And by the way, I've seen artwork for this project, and in the vicinity of where the West Coast version of the Adventures Club was going to be built, they were also going to build a West Coast version of the Planet Hollywood they have at Disney Springs, that weird round building. Mm-hmm. So, big chunks of Florida were supposed to come to California. But back to what the Rouses wanted to do with Disney Texposition. I guess the best way to describe this, Lauren, was it was kind of the best of Walt Disney World, but in a box. For example, they wanted a restaurant on site there at the Festival Marketplace where breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you could walk in the door and then have a character meal. You'd be there with Mickey and the gang. They also wanted an attraction located right in the middle of this complex where guests could then experience something that at that time was brand new at the Disney theme parks, and that was a motion-based simulator. So the idea is, mind you, you'd have to surrender like $5 to have this ride experience, but you could supposedly climb on board the original Star Tours ride film, or Body Wars, which, by the way, had only just opened at Epcot's Wonders of Light Pavilion in October of that same year, 1989. And again, this is right after Rouse has been in Florida and fixed Disney World's Pleasure Island problem. There was also supposed to be an on-site theater where guests could, over the course of their day at Disney Texposition, experience a theme park show like Voyage of the Little Mermaid or Beauty and the Beast live on stage. Plus quick service restaurants, not to mention sit-down eateries, your Disney-themed stores and shops. And the other thing here, Lauren, the conceit of what Disney was building with the Rouse organization, Texposition, was kind of the same thing that Universal Destinations and Experiences are hoping for with the Universal Kids Resort. They want that park, that regional park, to be a gateway to the Universal Orlando Resort or the Universal Studios out in Hollywood. The notion that a family goes there to Universal Kids, has a good time, and thinks, ooh, next time let's go to Florida, do Universal there, or let's fly out to Southern California and see the Hollywood park. And this is exactly what Disney was hoping for with Texposition, that people would go to this festival marketplace outside of Dallas, have a really good time and think, okay, I think I want to go to Disneyland in Anaheim, or I want to go down to Florida and experience Disney World. So, with the notion of you get a taste of what Disney does at Texposition, and if you want the full meal, got to book a vacation package to Anaheim or Florida. And as I mentioned at the top of this segment, you can go right now and take a look at that feasibility study that Buzz Price's company put together, which says, based on the financials and the affluence of the local community and the age of people who live in this area, there was a really good chance this project would have succeeded. Which is why Frank Wells and Michael Eisner, as 1989 gives way to 1990, they say to the Rouse organization, well, look, we're kind of in the middle of building Disneyland Paris. And by the way, we're also looking to expand the Disneyland Resort now in Anaheim, build a second park there. Can we put a pin in this Texposition thing? Once we get France open, in 92, and solidified plans for Anaheim, we will absolutely circle back on this regional festival marketplace thing that you want to do. But of course, that's not how it happened, Lauren. Given the huge financial issues that arose with Disneyland Paris when that opened in April of 92, a lot of things that Disney had in the works, including Texposition, suddenly shut down because the mouse then had to get its financial house in order. But what I find fascinating about this, Lauren, is that Disney shuts down development of Texposition in the fall of 1992, winter of 1993. And yet, if we jump ahead just 11 months or thereabouts, it's now November of 1993, and here's the Disney company announcing, we're going to build a regional theme park. Only this one, not in Texas, Virginia. And this is where we get Disney's America, the history park. And, I just, there's a part of me that wonders, think about it. This year in 2026, we are celebrating, America's 250th anniversary. And you got to wonder, what would it have been like at Disney's America, this year, if that park had actually managed to make it open? What sort of festivities would be going on right now in Disney's?
As you're telling this story, that's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah. But anyway, by the way, just to sort of bring us full circle here, if you want to read a lot of Disney history in the raw, I seriously recommend heading on over to the Buzz Price collection, which again is available online thanks to the University of Central Florida. And if you really want to get your mind blown, chase down the report there from January of 1985, and this is literally months after Michael Eisner has become the company's new CEO. And it's a design charrette. Everybody has flown down to Disney World for the weekend to talk about the next 30, 40, 50 years of the Disney World Resort. And it's at this meeting where, we get Disney making plans to make the first moderate resort, and that would be the Caribbean Beach Resort in 1988. We get Disney moving into timeshares. That's where the DVCs come from in, 1990, 1991. And then we get the earliest hints of, a project that Lauren wants me to talk about on next week's show, which is the value resorts, the Disney All-Stars. And again, fascinating reading, folks. And, if you got a couple of hours, dig down deep into the Buzz Price archives, you're going to learn amazing things about the early history of the Walt Disney World Resort.
Or just keep listening to these podcasts, because Jim's going to tell you if you don't want to do the heavy lifting on your own.
There's that too. But, I like to give people the option sometimes to find out where I get the stories from, so they themselves can read them.
Yes.
But anyway, on that note, I think we better call it a week here at I Want That Too.
Yep. It's time to close up shop for today. Happy 4th of July.
Yep. Again, I know you folks don't have a ghost train, and I'll promise to get a recording. But by the way, if you want to keep up on everything happening across the Jim Hill Media Podcast Network, please follow us on social.
Yep. And if you have questions or an idea for a future episode, shoot us a message, jims@jimhillmedia.com, and I'm at lauren@laurenhersey.com. And if you're not quite ready for all the Disney conversations to end, be sure you're checking out Jim Hill Media over on Patreon for ad-free episodes, bonus content, and even more Disney history. But that does it for today's episode of I Want That Too. Thanks for listening.